What is this? You guys are awesome. Navi upped her game to join the Howlers, so this is your shout out. Thank you. You are awesome. Well, everybody, it is that time again to talk about what I read in the month of October. So this is going to be my October wrap-up video. So let's get into the books that I read and reviewed on the channel coming up. And this month started off, of course, with the continuation of the Greatcoats, read along with Mike's book reviews, and Saint's Blood was not good. Wasn't good. I do have a full review up for this, but this was book 3 of the 4 books of the Greatcoats by Sebastien de Castell, and it just wasn't great. I definitely feel like this should have been a trilogy, and Tyrant's Throne, I assume, is going to function as that trilogy completion. I don't really understand why this was 4 books. If he wanted to extend the lore and the gods and the saints the way that he does in this book, I feel like that could have been better accomplished really just adding 100 pages to each book, maybe 150, and pad it out that way, because this book just felt unnecessary. It felt like a side quest. It didn't really further the story that was built in books 1 and 2. I won't get into it too much because I do have a full review on the channel for it, but it wasn't great, and I'm hoping Tyrant's Throne really knocks it out of the park and brings the series to a good conclusion, because if this was the last book, I would be very disappointed, having invested myself in the other 2 books the past couple of months, because I love the first 2 books. So hopefully Tyrant's Throne wraps it up nicely, and I read more from Sebastien de Castell, because I know he's coming up with another series in this universe, and also has Spellslinger, which I've heard is very similar to the Greatcoats. So I want to like these books more, and I really hope that, as much of a stumble as Saint's Blood was for me, I hope that book 4 is not the same, because that would be very disappointing, because this story started off on such a high point, and I loved it, so hopefully it ends that way. I did, however, follow that up with what is now the best sci-fi book that I've read personally, and a lot of people's favorite sci-fi book of all time, which is Frank Herbert's Dune. So this does function very much as a standalone, and I do have a full review for this as well. But I genuinely loved this book. I loved all the ideas and the themes behind it. This is not a super action-packed sci-fi thriller or anything. This is no Red Rising, where it's very action-focused and bloody and violent and gory and graphic. This is very much a thinking man's sci-fi story, and this lived up to the hype and renown that it has. And I can confidently say that it's definitely the best sci-fi book that I've read. I had more fun reading Red Rising, and it's more exciting, if that makes any sense. But I really wish the movie hadn't gotten delayed, because I want to see this adaptation that Denis Villeneuve is doing, because it looks fantastic, but I will have to wait until next year. Luckily, I will have read all 6 of Frank Herbert's Dune books by then, because I am itching to get into Dune Messiah and Children of Dune, I believe is book 3. I'm going to read those 2 back to back, because Dune Messiah is very short. So I'm going to read those basically as one novel, probably not until January, but before the movie comes out next year, I will have read the entire first 6 books of the series. But it was fantastic. The world building is spectacular. Just the amount of politicking and things that you can... Oh, my son's crying. And we're back. Okay. Is this thing still on? We're still good? Okay. So what was I talking about? Oh yeah, Dune. So, Dune was great. It was fantastic. I loved it. And it deserves all of the renown and high praise that it gets as the greatest sci-fi of all time by many, because it is truly that. And I cannot wait to continue with this world that at least Frank Herbert wrote. I've heard incredibly mixed things about his son writing 13 more Dune novels and prequels and everything else. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll get to those eventually. But I am going to read the first 6 that Frank Herbert himself wrote. Loki wants attention now. What's up? I do have a full review. Did I say that? Probably. Definitely check this book out if you enjoy sci-fi at all. As others have said, if you love fantasy and you don't read a lot of sci-fi, I think it's good as well, because it does have a lot of fantasy elements to it. It's got a lot of the same, some of the same story beats and themes and things that you'll see in a lot of fantasy, because Frank Herbert he had to have impacted so many authors, whether it be fantasy, sci-fi, you name it. They got so much from probably not just this book, the sequels as well, But Dune as a standalone, you can see his influence all over sci-fi fantasy today. So highly recommend it. Go check it out. And then there's this. Edgedancer, I still don't like. I've thought about it more and more. I still don't like it. I don't like Lift. I don't like her character. At least an entire book focused on her character. It just feels so out of place in the Stormlight universe. I just didn't find her funny. I found her rather annoying. I didn't like that the book was very much written almost in a sense that like her sections, it's almost like the narrator was writing it as if Lift was telling it. It was weird. I didn't like it. Comedy didn't land for me. There wasn't a whole lot of action. One of the battles ended with her hugging the bad guy. I mean, it was just like Saturday morning cartoon level of shit that I don't care about. So, if you love the Cosmere and you really want all of it, read Edgedancer. It is beneficial to read this before Oathbringer because of the implications on the story, building Lift as a character, because she is going to be around for the long haul. I just didn't personally care for it, but yes, it's a quick read. You should probably read it before you read Oathbringer because there are things that will come up, so definitely do that. And I don't know, you might enjoy it. I didn't, so that's where I'm at with Lift. But the next book she was in and was far less annoying. So the last book of October that I actually just finished earlier today, recording this, was Oathbringer. Now this is another 5-star kind of book for me. I don't typically rate books or like give a point value or anything like that on the channel. I throw it up on Goodreads as like a 3 to 5 typically. As an example, Edgedancer was a 2. This is a 5. So Oathbringer was fantastic though. I definitely think this would slot right in between kind of where I thought it would based on my Cosmere tier list that I did. Right in between Way of Kings and Words of Radiance. This would probably go up in the S tier behind Words of Radiance because I think that is a better book overall. But this for me was definitely better than Way of Kings. There were some slower parts in the middle, but I was engaged in the story the entire time, all 1,263 pages, whatever it was, some crazy amount. It never got boring, which is good, which is very hard to do, honestly, too, because the book is massive. I feel like I read 3 books, basically. But it was great. The character growth in this one was spectacular. It's definitely, in that aspect, I think was on par with Words of Radiance, where... So, I mean, if you haven't read this story, you have, obviously, we know that Way of Kings is really Kaladin's story. Words of Radiance is Shallan's, and this book, Oathbringer, is all about Dalinar. So he is the main focus. You get a ton of backstory, a ton of flashbacks, a lot of character growth with him, and you really understand that he was not always a great person. So I'll have a full review for this next week, either Monday or Wednesday, but this book knocked it out of the park for me. The character growth and work was fantastic. You expand a lot on the side characters that you were introduced to in book 1. Szeth actually is becoming more and more of a mainstay character rather than a background character, so that's exciting to see because he is actually getting more characterization than the previous books, which is awesome. The world of Roshar obviously continues to be fascinating, and what I'm hoping to get out of Rhythm of War and beyond is moving now beyond the Shattered Plains and even getting like more of the world, because I feel like through these 3 books you're very heavily focused on one area mainly of the story because that's kind of where the story is converging. So I'm hoping that not necessarily wraps up in Rhythm, but starts to expand beyond that, because unless the plan is that these 5 books are all going to take place in the Shattered Plains, I trust Sanderson obviously with these books because they're great, but I'm hoping to see more beyond that. But of course I guess the one negative you could knock this book for, which is why I said it was kind of slow in the middle. While I didn't get bored, I definitely think the pacing takes a hit here. It was not as well paced as Words of Radiance, which I felt like was perfectly paced for a Stormlight book. Way of Kings, I feel like was very slow at the beginning and then was a fun ride. This one, I feel like it was like up here and then kind of dipped a little bit pacing wise and then came back up. Obviously, the Sanderlanche at the end of the book was fantastic. These are some of the best chapters at the end of the book that I've read. They were fantastic. There is epic battles in this one. all your characters are involved. Lift, that I mentioned, was far less annoying in this book, probably because it's not a book about her. So the scenes that she's in at first did make me roll my eyes, but she's not in it that much, and she's okay. I don't necessarily love the character, but in a book not focused on her, she's fine. Kaladin continues to be a great character. Shallan, I don't know how much I love Shallan after Words of Radiance, where she was really up there. I feel like I liked her a little bit less, but she's really interesting. So I don't know where I would put her on like a list of like ranking these characters. I definitely think Kaladin is my number one right now. I don't necessarily want to spoil why Dalinar is not. I still like his character a lot. I feel like he's a very, very well-developed and realized character. He can be hard to root for at times because of things that happen in his story. But that's all I want to say for that. If you're not on the Stormlight train, please get on it because these books are great. If you love high fantasy, you love big, deep, lore-filled novels like this grand epic tale that he's building before our eyes, definitely check the series out. I do have, obviously, reviews up here for Way of Kings and Words of Radiance, and then Oathbringer next week. So that is wrapping up my October. I have immediately begun doing the Rhythm of War chapters that are out. I think there's 17 out currently. So before I get to Rhythm of War on the 17th of November, I will have read every chapter that is available. So it's probably 200 or 300 pages into it. Again, those are all available in audiobook form right now on Brandon Sanderson's YouTube channel or through Tor.com. They have full chapter, written chapters on their website. So either way, it is available right now if you want to read it. I'll get to Dawn Shard at some point when that is available as well. And then I guess starting in the next couple of days, I will just jump into Tyrant's Throne. If I'm really into the Rhythm of War chapters, I'll probably do that first before getting back to Greatcoats. But I don't anticipate that book taking too long next month, so definitely check out my November TBR if you are interested in what I'm reading then. But that was my October, so what did you all read? What are you looking forward to the most in November? Drop in the comments down below. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on any of these Stormlight books. If you love Lift, you hate Lift. I know that's my most downvoted video that I have on the channel because I didn't love her. But I would love to hear your thoughts on anything I talked about here, anything you want to talk about really. I loved 2 of these books, and 2 of them were bad. So that was kind of up and down month for me, but they can't all be great hits, right? So that's going to do it for me, though. So like and subscribe as always. Hit up the Patreon if you do want to support the channel. Always optional, but always appreciated. And jump in Discord. We do have many active members now, battling for the top spot on the experience ladder. It's just a fun back and forth seeing all these people spamming ! rank in the rank channel just to see where they stand on the leaderboard. It's probably the most active channel on Discord outside of our Reading Sprints channel. So jump in there if you want to talk to me. I'm very active in that and on Mike's channel as well. So you'll find me there. And until next time, keep reading.